Well, it almost killed the company, but we did it. We made one boss fight. All that work for concepts, creature design, modeling, texturing, rigging, animations, stat blocks, behaviors, attack patterns, story beats, loot tables, pathing, DLC plans, cosmetic designs, and store merch, but it was all worth it. What's that? Most games have more than one boss fight? Shit. Well, we could just do one of these and there. New boss. What's that? Everyone's saying that's super cheap and lame, and also not how that works? Shit. Fortunately, there's a lot of space in between bad palette swap boss and having to start from scratch. What can you do to spruce up a boss you fight a second time? How can you make recycled bosses not feel like filler? I've got examples. Today, we're talking about how to make a great recycled boss fight. Match up with the browser of your dreams. It's Opera GX. They're back, and they're this video's sponsor. When was the last time you upgraded your browser? Do you even know what's out there these days? First of all, Opera GX is geared toward the idea of bringing joy back to the internet. I sympathize. They've got customization for everyone with GX mods. You control every pixel, get as detailed as you want. Or grab some of the mods on the GX store. Cyberpunk, Lo-Fi Chill, Spirit Blossom, lots more. Splash screens, background music, keyboard sounds, tab sounds, wallpapers, cool shaders, custom cursors, and you can turn each setting on and off one by one. Opera GX has a built-in ad blocker and VPN, so you can get all the content you want. It's ridiculously easy to try out too. They've got a quick import tool that can take all your settings from your current browser, bookmarks, cookies, even your Chrome extensions, and have them all waiting for you when you boot up Opera GX. Upgrade to the gaming browser. Download Opera GX. Link below. Alright, if we're going to recycle a boss fight, what's the easiest way to do it? Just have players fight the boss a second time, right? No tricks, just put the boss in your world again somewhere else. It happens all the time with mini-bosses, and it happens all the time in God of War 2018. Here's a troll, and here's a troll. Here's a golem, and here's a golem. Same fight over and over. Maybe a variant once in a while, but it's pretty much a copy-paste job. You can do that. It works for Elden Ring, kinda. But there are some obvious problems to watch out for. This is the path that can make a boss feel like filler. And it could feel like filler in a couple of different ways. If a game has some kind of extrinsic progression, like if your game character has higher stats or more powerful powers that you build over time, the old boss should be kind of a joke the second time around, right? The player won the first time and now has more tools in the toolkit for the second time. If a game doesn't have extrinsic progression, and it's relying on players intrinsically building their skills just by playing the game and coming up with their own techniques, a boss rematch is even more prone to feeling like filler. You got better intrinsically, and the boss didn't change, so what are we doing here again? Where's the new challenge? What are we trying to prove? Even the biggest and most Nintendo-ish studios can run into this problem. Take The Imprisoned. The Imprisoned is some kind of pangolin-looking monster, the cursed demonic form of the final big bad of Skyward Sword, sealed off for generations. And if that thing gets out of this pit mine-looking arena, that's bad. After a flourish to start the fight, the Imprisoned will start shambling up the path. Honestly, it feels a lot like it's trying to be a Shadow of the Colossus fight, but without so much climbing. Instead, you can either trip it, or use the arena to float over to higher ground and hop to the stake on its head. Whack it a few times, fall off, and repeat until the evil is sealed. Forever. A few game hours later, the Imprisoned is back, and it's got hands. but it's more or less the same fight. Every step it takes will produce a shockwave, so tripping it up is more annoying, but you can still go over the top. Getting on its head is a little easier thanks to Groose, who can stun the boss with a well-aimed catapult bomb. It's still mostly you running ahead, drifting up and over to the spike 3 times, and at last sealing it. Forever. Later that afternoon, the Imprisoned is back. Again. It's the same fight again. The shockwaves are a little bigger, and now it can also try to fly out of the pit very slowly. Chuck a bomb at it, and later yourself before it flies out. Is that it? I think that's it. The Imprisoned is about the worst case scenario for a copy-pasted boss fight, and it's surprising coming from a Zelda game how phoned in this feels. The Imprisoned tries to be an ambitious fight with its gimmick and evolving moveset, but the changes don't change enough. The bombs are new, but they're not much of anything. The shockwaves are new, but you can easily ignore them. It's not a new arena, or a new premise, or much of a new way to deal with the monster. And the general gimmick just isn't all that fun in the first place. It's made even worse by the quest content surrounding it that also gets repeated, turning this fight into the meat of a filler sandwich. Most games recycle their bosses better than this. Like Skyward Sword. Wait, what? Huh. Girahim gets recycled just as much as the Imprisoned, but goodly now. Instead of a messy gimmick chase with the same kaiju 3 times, Girahim's fights are tense, evolving one-on-one duels, focused on the game's central sword mechanics. We talked about this in detail in the first bosses episode a while ago, but not the rematches. Each fight is a major exam for your swordplay skills, with a focus on precise swings and well-timed parries. Girahim always has his guard up in one way or another, and to make progress you'll have to attack from the correct angle, with the appropriate timing, and throw some sword tennis in there for fun. Each of the fights escalate. First he toys with you, not even drawing his sword. As you prove yourself capable, he steps it up, from dismissive to frustrated to hate. He draws his sword, teleports around, and throws knives. His defenses get more elaborate. His stances change. His attacks get faster, and you'll have to parry with your shield more. He'll dual wield swords and add in more advanced moves. The fights are all similar formats, but with a consistent and satisfying ramp upwards. The placement of the fights during the game's runtime, the changing narrative throughline, the slow ratchet up in difficulty, and the rivalish way it plays out make 3 similar fights stand out, even if they're all kinda just about fighting a dude 3 times in an empty arena using fundamental game skills. The context around the fight makes all the difference. Honestly, it might be pushing it a little to say Girahim is exactly the same fight, especially the last one, but the context change does do a lot to make a repeat boss go down smoother, even if you barely change the fight. Other games do it with literally the same boss fight. Ace Combat 5 pits you against the Sinfaxi, a nuclear-powered submarine that's also an aircraft carrier. Ace Combat loves war machines that spit out other war machines. You go off to confront the Sinfaxi as it approaches your squad's home base as the centerpiece of the enemy fleet and the first true boss of the game. As an actual fight, the Sinfaxi is pretty straightforward. After a bunch of dramatic build-up and fighting off the surface fleet, it emerges, flushed out by your own space station space laser superweapon, the Arcbird. The Sinfaxi has loads of anti-air guns to chip away at. As with any major target, you'll need to be smart about your attack runs, flying just right to land as many missile hits as you can without exposing yourself too much to AA gunfire and surrounding UAVs, or crashing into the target. Their superweapon is a devastating burst missile that will scrap anything below an altitude of 5,000 feet. You'll have support fire from the Arcbird covering you a good chunk of the time, shooting the missile down before it makes impact and saving you the trouble of climbing, but it won't catch everything. When your wingmates or commander starts to warn you, climb or die. Juggling between attacking and evading against the Sinfaxi isn't too difficult and makes it a very solid first boss and set piece. A few more missiles and there it goes. The Sinfaxi sinks, never to be seen again. But what military contractor in their right mind would only buy one nuclear submarine aircraft carrier? Get two and get the discount, right? The Hrimfaxi is the sister ship of the Sinfaxi. Same ship design, same threat, but you fight it later on in the story. The second time around, the mission has you racing against the clock in the Arctic to catch the sub by surprise and damage it just enough before it dives. Unable to run, the fight begins in earnest. Like before, you got a bunch of AA and UAVs to work around. The fight overall is more difficult. The Hrimfaxi periodically submerges for a bit, eating up your mission timer until you can damage it enough to break it down. Critically, you won't have the Arcbird backing you up here, so you'll be climbing to dodge those burst missiles way more often. The opposition is fiercer and the opportunities to strike are fleeting, making for a more demanding or even oppressive feeling encounter compared to most of the previous missions. The notably higher difficulty, along with the distinct Arctic setting and an intense music track, all combine to create a solid second encounter that doesn't feel like a cheap rehash. The mechanics are familiar, the model is the same, but everything else has changed, elevating what was already there a step above the Sinfaxi fight. Even when a fight is fundamentally the same on paper, the right context and just enough little changes can go a long way toward keeping a rematch from feeling redundant. I know it seems like a simple formula, but a little tweak to what you already have really does work. Take the basic idea of the original fight and build on it. Add an element, a new twist, an obstacle, an addition to the attack pattern, and give the fight a familiar but still new challenge. One option is to save the challenge for later in the game. Anyone repeating a boss will be at least familiar enough to get kinda deep into your game, right? That's a reason why boss recycling fits so well with the idea of a hard mode, either explicitly post-game content or a hardcore mode, like Kingdom Hearts 2's Data Organization 13, High and Master Rank in Monster Hunter, or even the extra campaigns in tons of Kirby games. But one of my absolute favorites is Title Defense mode in Punch-Out for the Wii. Once you fight your way through the game's 13-boxer cast in the baseline contender mode, Little Mac becomes champion. He's the guy to beat in the WVBA, and every single fighter is back to take an immediate shot at the belt, through you. They don't even have to earn it like you did, they just get to. Title Defense mode is the hard campaign. Every boxer took a long, hard look at themselves and figured out their biggest weakness: sportsmanship. Toss that out and you can do anything. Glass Joe's wearing headgear, King Hippo taped a manhole cover on himself, Great Tiger is doing magic for real, and Aaron Ryan's going to kill you, oh my god. Every opponent in Title Defense has a new twist on their original fight. New moves, enhanced old moves with a follow-up, new tactics, and new restrictions. Often, they're preying on players' expectations built up from the vanilla fight. Glass Joe's headgear limits your approach, where you can only hit that weak jawline after you hit him with a star punch first, something that gets trickier to do with a few of his other new moves and fakeouts. King Hippo's manhole cover needs to be knocked off to re-expose his weak spot. The counterattack opportunities are more selective, where you can only stun the guy some of the time, when his jaw is open, not all of the time like the first fight. The mechanical differences between the fights aren't super complicated, but since the series is known for goofy fun, the devs put in tons of bespoke animation in the rematch to sell the jokes. The experience of the second fight feels just as satisfying as the first. One boss concept made into two colorways, each doing their part to fill up the game's runtime in a way that doesn't feel like a copy-paste job. Title Defense mode wasn't nearly as hard to make as 13 new boxers would be, yet it's where most of the game's depth truly lies. A substantial half of the game made from recycled materials. The most important thing to think about when recycling a boss fight is to decide what to focus on. Where are you going to put the work in? What elements are you going to change to make something worth playing again? Not every part of a boss is equally contributing to the overall experience, And at the same time, not every audience is treating every element of your game as equally important. You have to think about why people are coming to your game. If you can do nothing else, focus your work there. Take it from the kings of economical game development, Sega CS R&D Department No. 1, RGD Studio, the Yakuza devs. Yakuza, or now called Like a Dragon in the West, is known for reusing the same locations frequently. They've been able to churn out between 1 and 3 full-on AAA quality games per year, by returning to Kamurocho, among other places, reusing gameplay mechanics, and reusing a cast of characters you've come to know and love in all new adventures. Instead of starting from scratch on every one of these, RGD Studio can focus on the new story, dressing up the city as the decades change, coming up with new scenarios to play out on these same streets to these same people. And they took it to a new extreme in Yakuza Kiwami. Kiwami's a remake for sure, but it's kinda weird. It's effectively Yakuza 1 told through Yakuza 0's engine. Gameplay elements, assets, and the presentation of it all is straight out of 0. There are some weird changes from the original, but if you aren't pretty deep into the lore already, you probably won't notice. And one of those changes, at the very least, gave the game its own flair. Goro Majima, series fan favorite. In the original game, Majima wasn't much of a character yet. He's there at the start and a couple more times after that, once as a major boss fight. But he's not quite Majima, you know? He's not the Mad Dog frenemy. He's not the guy who would star in his own pirate side story yet. But how do you handle this character when he has to go back into the remake? Well, none of the main story beats change, but we can just add some new stuff. Enter the Majima Everywhere system. In the story, your player character Kiryu has been in prison for 10 years. Kiryu's fighting skills have tanked, and Majima's taken notice. Right out the gate, Majima fights you in an almost unwinnable fight, and out of a bizarre obsessive desire to see Kiryu restored to his prime, Majima makes a deal. Wherever you go, there he'll be, ready to fight you whether you like it or not. Majima will be everywhere. He patrols the streets of Kamurocho, hiding to ambush you, waltzing in during random encounters, even challenging you to minigame battles. At first, he's holding back his true strength, but the more you fight him and go up the ranks, the more he'll step things up, even using his fighting styles from Yakuza 0. Majima has loudly become part of the game's progression system. As you progress, you'll get special event encounters. Police Officer Majima, Disco Majima, Zombie Majima, which also reuses some of the Dead Souls spin-off assets. That's just fun. You never know what he's gonna do next. The rewards for beating him are super worth it too. Not only do you gain a ton of XP, way more than the random thugs, it's the only way to unlock skills in the dragon fighting style, Kiryu's legacy moveset from the original. Even though you're fighting the same guy over and over, it's always worth doing. Majima Everywhere is a great way to reuse a boss. The special events and general premise are hilarious. His roaming boss nature adds an interesting dynamic to the less stressful parts of gameplay, and it's always great to see the lengths he goes to get the drop on Kiryu. A perfect way to get more out of the assets that the devs already had. If you can only afford to put one foot forward, make it your best foot. These sections have all been about how smart boss recycling can help save time and money in development. But even if you don't care at all about that, recycling can still help the gameplay just on its own. You can use it to do things to help you jam in even more crunchy mechanical fun. You've heard of boss arenas, right? Some late game thing in RPGs and action games where you can refight stuff you probably already fought before, and how sometimes it's stronger than it was the first time. Usually, that's an opt-in experience. A designer can crank up the difficulty on a rematch without alienating your less sweaty players. That's a tried and true way to reuse some bosses. However, you could pull a Megaman, either Battle Network or Star Force, and just not opt people out. Catch the player by surprise. When you clear out a story boss in these games, you better believe that isn't the last you'll see of them. Yes, there's the traditional Megaman boss rush at the end, But there's also a Ghost or EX version of each boss to refight. They linger, invisibly, on some specific tile in the cyber worlds you're traveling through. Once you step on that tile, and it will be by accident, the rematch begins. The Ghost is a little stronger, but not all that much of a jump from the first fight. Some stat buffs, and a new move or two sometimes. Win and you get a special card that will summon them to your side for a special attack. You also unlock a jump scare. Now that you've stumbled into this Ghost boss world, they're now part of the random encounter pool of that boss's respective area. Each one has a chance of showing up again as a third SP variant. You'll be able to show just how far you've come as you get better and better at fighting this guy, right? Wrong. This third version is much stronger. Bigger stats, bolder tactics. If you don't take it seriously, you can get swept in 1 or 2 hits. Their encounter rate is low, but they really can happen at any time, so there's a real risk in stepping back into old terrain. If you can manage the challenge, you'll get an even stronger summon card for your trouble. Some people hate this, and yeah, that's fair. So the re-released Legacy Collection for Star Force adds a quality of life feature that displays the boss's location for the first rematch, letting players properly opt into the challenge. This whole approach can be an interesting and very inexpensive option to add more content. Changing a set of stat blocks and maybe adding a new attack can make a new strategic challenge for players by itself, and it can be great fodder for adding secrets for superfans to stumble into, without adding too much extra dev work. You know, if you want to reuse a boss, you don't have to reuse the entire thing all at once. You can grind it up and reform it into fun new boss nugget shapes. Sprinkle parts of a boss far and wide. The kids will play anything if you deep fry it. Final Fantasy XIV reskins its bosses all the time. Sure, some stuff like the demon walls are clearly palette swaps, but there's a lot more being reused besides that than you think. Every expansion has its share of impressive new bosses, but over time you might notice that there are some bosses that inherit some assets. Take Scathach, one of the last bosses in the Heavensward Alliance Raid series. A floating demoness with a spear and an extra pair of wing arms. All new, pretty cool, solid boss. Now, fast forward a few expansions to Shadowbringers, to the boss of a mid-story dungeon, Mount Gulg. Take the demoness design, but make it a little more of a statuesque angel sort of thing. Give her a musical motif, turn the spear into a staff, turn the wing-like arms into some musical staff dealios, and bam, your old boss is new again. The animations between the two are roughly the same, but the clever new coat of paint spruces it up. And this is far from the only example. It speeds up production and doesn't give that cheap feel that a straight up palette swap often does. Do this kind of thing in moderation, with a wide enough range of different animation rigs for different archetypes, and you'd be surprised how much new mileage you can get out of old content. The work to make all new stuff is saved for a crescendo, and the reimagined bosses get applied to more minor content, like an early raid, a dungeon boss, or even just fate events in the overworld. Sometimes they do go in the opposite direction though. Take Omega Weapon. If you look closely at its stance and structure, you might notice that it shares the same rig as these guys, the basic giant toad enemy you've seen 100 of by now. But it's dressed up in such a way that you might never notice. I never realized it until someone pointed it out. That's neat. Of course, just reusing some animations doesn't mean you have to reuse everything. You don't have to use the same moveset. In FF14, with the way combat works, attack animations don't necessarily correspond to their actual mechanical effects. The animations can telegraph that something is happening, but it's not like you're physically interacting with the boss itself. It's not like a Dark Souls game, when you're anticipating a sword swing to parry. MMO mechanics, and FF14 in particular, tend to be much more flexible. The boss design in a long-running game like FF14 gives the devs a lot to draw from, and even for a major studio, it helps to be able to repurpose a lot of that again, in ways that help make such an expansive world possible to produce. Head to the comments and start name dropping some really creative boss rematches. The weirder, the better. The comment quality has been really good lately, so thanks, and keep that up. I'll heart a bunch of the good ones. Recycling a boss is cheaper than making a new one, but it doesn't have to be cheap. Find a way to make it complement the best parts of your game, and maybe you won't burn yourself out. Maybe. Best of luck.